Hi, my name is Lawrence. I'm a social worker here with Colorectal Cancer Canada, and today I'll be introducing Connecting Through Cancer, the Family Toolbox. So we will be launching a few modules that are designed to support families in their journey with colorectal cancer. So first, a rapid overview of what we will be discussing in Module 1, which is the module where we talk about diagnostic disclosure. We will discuss some tips around the diagnostic disclosure itself, the 5 whys to reflect upon for family members engaging in that conversation. So the 5 whys are when, who, where, what, and why. We will take a moment to discuss the elements and changes to be mindful of and to be observant of with your children, going over what can help, how you can go about supporting your kid, as well as a glossary of medical terms, just to have a better comprehension of the illness itself. Then we'll finish by sharing a few resources that can be relevant or helpful for your family to explore and go through. So first, tips around the diagnostic disclosure itself. What you want to do with your children is keep it simple and use appropriate language that is, basically accessible to their age and their development stage. We want to explain how the cancer is going to be treated, just so have full transparency with your family members and with your child. We can identify the illness itself, the body parts that are impacted, and just be comfortable with saying, I don't know, we're going to ask, this is a great question, and this is something we can address with the team. We also invite you to accept the fact that your children, will talk when they're ready. They all have their own pace. It, yes, has to do with their age, but also with just who they are as a person, their life experience, their personality. So just be mindful of respecting their pace, as this is a shock for them as well. We want to encourage your children to voice their fears and share how they're feeling. So having those open discussions with them and for them to feel comfortable going to you is really important. We want to empower them to ask any question that's on their mind, anything that they need clarification on. So really making it known that they have a space to explore this, express themselves, and inquire about stuff that they don't understand maybe fully. We also don't want to be afraid of using the word cancer itself. It can be scary and intimidating to present this to your children. This is fully understandable and valid, right? But we want them to understand the nature of the situation, for them to know also this is not something that's contagious or anything like that, for them to have just an accurate picture of what their family member is going through. And we also encourage you to check in often with your children, seeing how they're doing, if there are things that they want to explore and talk about some more. So the 5 whys to reflect upon. So we're going to go over a few questions that are quite common when parents, guardian, family members are facing a situation where they have to disclose the cancer of a family member or a significant person in the child's life. So first, when is the right time to disclose this information to your children? Who should be telling the family members, the children, where the conversation should take place, what to tell them, and why it's important to be transparent and for them to be in the loop. So when is the right time to tell my children? That's a big question. Honestly, as soon as possible is always best, right? We want to nurture a trusting relationship within the family. So for them to be involved in those discussions as soon as is possible is always best. It could occur whenever you have a chance to, have all the information that you wanted to have clarification on for yourself. So as soon as we know the diagnosis, the treatment, what the plan is, this could be a good time to introduce your kid to this situation and to that conversation. You can take a moment to ensure that you have absorbed the information yourself before telling your children. This is huge for you as well, so don't be dismissive of that, and show yourself some grace in that process as well. We also we can try and writing down some of the things that you want to go over with them beforehand. You can practice having that conversation with another family member, with an adult that you feel comfortable with, and that can be supportive of you in this delicate situation. And we also encourage you to seek support for yourself, right? Both before and after we disclose the diagnosis to your children, just to make sure that you have acquired the tools that you need, that you feel prepared. Also, just to process and debrief, right, once the conversation have occurred, just for you to have a space to digest all the changes in your family dynamics. The goal is also to prevent, the child from having that responsibility of taking care of the parent's emotional journey or response, or the guardian or the other family members that are involved. So what we want you to remember is talk about it as soon as possible and make sure you have the support for yourself too. So who should be telling your children? Both guardians can be involved, it can be the parents, basically anyone who's significant and trustworthy in the child's life, right? Someone that the child knows. So it can be, a family member, an aunt, a grandparent, the parents. It's really up to you. You are the one who know your children best. So you are the ones who can make that decision and, seeing who we want to be there in that moment. Where you can go about having that conversation. What should that look like? Sharing the sensitive information with your child is always best, to do in a space that feels comfortable, that feels safe, maybe some place that they know well, that they have good memories in. So for most families, that can be in the home. But if your family member is in the hospital, the conversation can also happen there. It's possible to request to have a social worker present just for you to have some emotional support there and someone who's able to, just accompany you in this conversation. And it can also be a place of your choosing, anywhere that has a significance for your family or anywhere where you can have sufficient calm, privacy to have this discussion. It can be a park, it can be, a calm restaurant that you and your family go to. So it's up to you to have this reflection beforehand and to plan where you want to have a discussion with your kids. So next, what do I tell them? That's a really big question. It's probably one of the main considerations that you have right now as you're getting ready to have this discussion with your children. We can start by explaining what cancer is, right? And use proper terminology, use the word cancer and avoid nicknames, for instance. We can let them know that, your body is made out of tiny essential cells. And when cancer occurs, there are cells that are abnormal or that don't look like the normal healthy cells. And those cells can travel from one body part to another, and they can make the person sick, basically. So we want to reassure them this is not something that's contagious. This is not something that they caused. This is no one's fault. And we always want to remember the child's age when we talk about the diagnosis, right? So we consider their age, but also if there's any type of neurodivergency, something that we know about their own development process. So being mindful of those aspects when we choose how we go about having this conversation and what vocabulary we're going to want to use. We want to be honest and open about the situation, about the treatment, about the illness, and about the plan of action. We need to know that when a child asks a question, usually it means that they are ready to hear a response. They are curious, so when we want to, be transparent with them, we foster that trust. And we also want to avoid false promises or inaccurate information in the hope of preserving the children's feelings or emotions, because that can be further confusing and distressing down the road. We also want to let them know, some of the things that will impact their day-to-day routine, things that may change in the family and the household. We can tell them that there, could be side effects, physical changes, personality changes, even for that person who's coping with the illness. And they might see their loved one, in pain or having some struggles, and this is normal. And again, not their fault. We can let them know that yes, people can die from cancer, but that there are special treatments that can help and that can help manage the illness. And also, not everyone will pass from cancer. This happens for some, not all. And we can remind them that it's always okay to ask questions. It's always okay to say if they're feeling sad, they're feeling scared, to voice their emotions. And just reassure them that it's okay to cry, to be upset, angry, or any other emotion that shows up is normal and valid. You may be wondering, why should I even tell them? Why is it important? There are misconceptions around, what children are able to face and cope with. We may think that children are too young to understand death, to understand the illness, to participate in bereavement rituals, and to deal with painful situations. And I can understand that it's somewhat counterintuitive to want to expose them to something that's painful and something that's so complex to comprehend for their young minds. But children are actually likely to be more confused and to grieve in isolation when they're excluded from those important conversations. They may feel like a secret is being kept from them, and not having those key elements needed to understand why the changes are happening at home can be further unsettling and dysregulating for them. So they are likely to be impacted by unspoken emotion. They could make up their own explanation for, what's going on. They could misinterpret conversation that they overhear, feel guilty or responsible. So this is not what we want, and this is why we want to encourage transparency and honesty. Also, pre-death rituals and ceremonies, they have the advantage of including the family members who are impacted by the disease. The children can sense changes as well with their caregivers, their parents, the relationship. They can feel that something is not quite normal and that the routine has been, somewhat impacted and turned over. So we want them to be in the loop because this is what's going to make them feel like they are able to ask for support and to ask for help. This is also something that can help you face this difficult challenge as a family and to face it as a united front. So some elements and changes to be mindful of with your child. You may notice a few symptoms, a few situations where they may show irritability, inability to relax, numbness to the impactful news that you just shared, spaciness. So it's going to be different from one child to another. They may result to dolls, drawing, games, puppets, hard supply, really tap into their creativity, including, being imaginative, act out some feelings that can be too powerful or threatening for them to process at this time, and for them to be able to talk out loud at this step. Some adults may unintentionally ignore or minimize the children's expression of grief and the distress that they will show, because it is manifested in a different way than it is for adults, right? They could mask their pain. They could, look like, their typical behavior. They could continue to play, especially in younger children. But it could also be due to the fact that it's difficult for them to experience and express those complex feelings. Um, there's also possibility of impact on the sleep, on their appetite, eating habits. So those types of symptoms and changes can arise. So what we really advocate for is to watch, study, and learn how your children acts and react to that news, and just take it one step at the time and meet them where they are at. So what can you do to help? How can we support children that are facing those difficult news when learning about a family member's diagnosis? This is not easy for adults, and it's definitely not easy for children and for teenagers. So something we want to encourage is constance, coherence, reassurance, love, honesty, and trust. So this goes over the topics that we've addressed previously here. We want to be open about what's going on. We invite them to talk to us, right? But also to a social worker, to a psychologist, to a teacher they trust at school, to any trustworthy, meaningful adult that can have the capacity to hold space for their feelings. We can provide books, videos, other informational documents that help them understand what's going on. And we want to try our best to keep a normal routine just so that they have something that they can relate to, something that feels familiar. Maximizing quality family time is also something that can be really important to make space for. We get that, the various appointments, the treatments, these things can be super overwhelming and time consuming, but whenever we're able to make space for those family moments, that's going to go a long way for your children and for yourself as well as family members and as parents. You want to listen to what they tell you. Let them ask the questions that they need to ask and let them show emotion. And you also want to show emotion in front of them, right? Just allowing this process to take place, letting them know that this is normal and that showing emotion openly is okay. So here's a glossary of a few medical terms around cancer treatment and oncology. These are not for you to go over with your children specifically, but more as a point of reference for yourself so they can have a better understanding of the illness and have a better capacity to relay that information to your child in a way that is understandable and accessible. So to sum it up, what you should remember from this module is that it's important to use simple, age-appropriate language, that we want to be transparent and honest about the diagnosis, that we want to respect the child processing pace. We want to be present and spend time together as a family. We want to provide reassurance and try to keep a regular routine as much as possible. So here are a few helpful resources that you can explore and go over as a family. So if there are aspects that you want more clarity on or areas where you want more support, we invite you to visit those websites, but also to never hesitate to reach out to us, right? So if you would like to have a consult with us, with one of the social worker, with the organization, with our patient support specialist, we want you to know that support is available and that you have access to those tools and to those spaces. So never hesitate to reach out to us. In the description of the video, you will find the email addresses where you can reach out to us, the phone numbers, as well as a link for those resources. Really appreciate you listening and engaging in this first module. Please stay tuned because we have more modules coming up. Thank you.